Hi yogis! Today's practice is dedicated to the pose of downward facing dog. If you're curious about how to change downward facing dog's alignment to better suit your body and your bones, I have a tutorial video for that. But for today, we're going to work to strengthen our shoulders and stretch some other areas so that we can get strong for our downward facing dog and be able to hold the pose consistently. I've got a blanket here with me because we're going to be spending a bit of time on our knees today. So if you'd like to grab one, I would recommend it. We're going to start with a modified table-like position, sort of between that and a dolphin pose. You're going to sink the head down towards the mat. The forearms can come down. You want to feel a stretch through the shoulders. We'll just be here for a breath or two. If this is too much for any part, you can always move and shift. You could take a regular child's pose or a dolphin if you want to go a little bit deeper. And from this modified tabletop-like position, go ahead and press up to an actual tabletop, and we'll take a couple of shoulder blade push-ups. So our goal is to try to keep the hips and the legs where they're at and just move through the shoulder blades themselves. So as we sink the chest down, we're pulling the shoulder blades in towards each other and towards the spine. And as we press the ground away, we're pulling the shoulder blades apart. We're not exactly caving in the chest, we're rounding more of an arch-like position through the front. Allow the chest to drop. Arch through the upper back. And sink down. Push it back up. And we'll take two more. Pulling the blades apart, and then pulling them together and towards the spine. Just one more, pushing it out, sinking it down, and then pushing up once more. Here we'll drop onto our forearms. You can sit back a little ways and walk the palms out about a hand's distance, maybe more, and then drop down. Engage through the fingertips and the palms themselves to press into the palms and lift the elbows. And as you bend the elbows down, they should come pointing directly behind you. So if they're pointing out to the side while you're doing this, then make sure that they point directly behind you. And we'll take two more. One more. And then sit back into either that modified tabletop or a more traditional child's pose. An option to let the arms sweep behind you, to let the wrists and the shoulders go a bit more. And then come back to your tabletop position. We'll work into the calves a bit, stretching the right leg behind us, toes down, and then working back and forth to warm up through the calf. If you'd like, you can tuck the left toes and lift off that knee. A little core action to try to draw the belly up. And if that's too much, you can always just drop that knee back down and take a few more gentle rocks on this first side. And if your knee is lifted, set it back down on the mat. Set the right knee back down as well. And then send the left leg behind you. Take a few rocks forward back. Option to lift that other knee if you'd like. Drawing the belly up towards the spine. And if your knee is lifted, go ahead and drop it back down to the mat. And then take another child's pose of choice. And back to your tabletop position where we're going to take our actual first down dog of the practice. Tuck the toes, lift the knees, and send the hips back. The first one's always the freebie, so feel free to work out any little kinks you can walk into the feet and the heels. Taking big bends into the knee. You can take bends into both knees, stretch to the shoulders. Maybe give a little twist. And then from this downward facing dog, drop onto the knees or stay up in plank. Lower down to the belly where we're going to take one cobra. Lift the chest as high as you'd like to go and send the top of the head away from you. And on your next exhale, lower down. Inhale, press it out to plank or tabletop. Tuck the toes. Find your downward facing dog again. This time you can make some more additional movements, maybe even lifting into a leg, working into one hip, or option to simply stretch into more parts or be still. We've got one more to go, so if you're working into a hip, we'll get to the other one next. If your leg is lifted, drop it back down to the mat. Come on to the knees. Lower it down to the belly. Inhale, find your second cobra. Maybe you lift the palms, maybe they stay planted down. And on your next exhale, you'll come back down to the mat. Inhale, press up to knees or plank. And find your second downward facing dog. You'll start to work into that second side, that second hip, if you did so on the first. Or find a bit of stillness here. If your leg is lifted, set it back down onto the mat. Shift forward onto the knees, lower onto the belly. And inhale, find your cobra. Or maybe something deeper, option to lift the palms or leave them planted onto the ground. And when you exhale, lower to the mat. Inhale, press out to knees or plank. And then find one more downward facing dog. Be still in this one for a breath or two. And notice what's happening in the shoulders. If those elbows are pointed directly behind you or if they want to come out to the side. There's a room between your ears and your neck and the shoulders themselves. You're creating one long line from the top of your head to the end of your spine. And don't worry if your heels aren't touching. Those always come last in this pose. Notice how the shoulders feel. We're going to drop onto the knees, back into a tabletop position, where we're going to change up our form a little bit. So I'm pressing pretty deep into the fingertips, spreading wide through the fingers themselves. My elbows are pointed back, and I know that because when I bend them, they point behind me and not out to the side. And then once we get that elbow alignment, see if you can draw the palms towards each other slightly, as if you're trying to slide them, but they don't actually move or go anywhere. And notice what activates through the back side of the shoulders here. I also feel the backs of my arms sort of wrapping behind me. And you just need to give 10 or so % on that pulling of the palms towards each other. It doesn't need to be a big pull. Now we're going to move into our downward facing dog from this alignment. So fingertips press in, elbows are pointed behind us, and then the palms gently draw towards each other as if they want to slide. Now tuck the toes, lift the knees, send the hips back, and see if your downward facing dog feels any different. Maybe you like this alignment shift.
Perhaps you feel a little bit more secure in the shoulders. There's more muscles helping that shoulder girdle to keep you in this pose. It's a little bit more work. There's a lot more muscles being fired up on the backside and along the sides of the body as well, and even the front chest. You can also play with your feet, how wide they are apart or narrow, the palms, how close they are or far apart as well, and then the distance between the feet and the palms themselves. This is your beautiful downward facing dog. Shift forward either to plank or to the knees. Lower onto the belly where we're going to open up the chest. The right arm is going to cactus out to the side. And the elbow is going to go slightly above our shoulder before we roll onto this first side. Gently roll back onto the belly. Take it to your second side where the left arm cactuses. The elbow is slightly above the shoulder. When you're ready, roll over onto this second side here. We'll take this same pose, but we're going to stretch the arms out like a T. Right arm comes out. Roll off onto your first side. Roll back to the belly. Take your second side, the left arm reaches out. And roll back to the belly and then onto your back.
Once you're on your back, start to wind down by taking a few windshield wipers left and right. Draw the knees into the chest, give it a hug, maybe even lifting the shoulder blades and the neck, the head. Come out of your hugging of the knees, take a happy baby, the feet go up towards the ceiling. The knees themselves come in towards the armpits and sides, and grab onto whatever is accessible, if that's calves or ankles or feet. But let the shoulders come and rest to the mat as well as the head. Option to be still or sway side to side or make any other movements that feel necessary. We'll just be spending a brief moment in our Shavasana as this was a very short practice today. Draw the feet in, let the arms sweep down the legs as they extend long. Let everything go for a few moments. Reach up and overhead, big stretch head to toe. And roll off onto your favorite side. And press through the palms. Coming up to a seated position. And hands can stay where they rest or they can press together at heart center. Thank you for sharing your practice today, and I hope that you enjoyed Downward Facing Dog. Namaste.